6 years ago when we started the show in the seventh season, my first show, my good friend Nick Zito joined me, and for some reason I've waited 6 years to have you back. Was I doing you? I think I asked you once. Nick Zito here, by the way. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you.
Who's bigger than Nick
Thank you
Zito?
very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're Mr. Saratoga.
I don't know about
You're
that.
Mr. Saratoga.
No, I don't know about that, but thank you anyway.
I mean, you're virtually a full-time resident. How many months a year are you here?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
7, 8 months almost.
We were talking today. You started coming here for the majority of the year, or at least, when you weren't in Florida, back as far as like 1990?
Oh, yeah, we're very proud of that. We love the community. Obviously, you see the people here.
First night, big crowd.
A1 people. So, that was easy. And the racetrack is beautiful. The training track is good. So I caught on, our stable caught on way back. I said, boy, this would be a great place to just train these horses. And we were fortunate, Andy, as you know, to train the top horses in the country right up here.
And when you started coming here in the off season to train, how many horses were there? How many? Were a couple hundred?
Not many when we first started, but then later on, it caught on like fire. And obviously, Todd Pletcher and everybody else, and there's bigger stables. There were few trainers that had liked it. I went way back. I think we talked about it.
We talked
this
about it
morning.
today. Yeah.
And but one of the things I really loved was just the way the horses responded. And we always bring up Birdstone because he trained right up here, for the race, and that was amazing, because but before him, we had plenty of horses that went on and win big races.
Well, 36 Red, you were saying when you trained him up here, and I don't know if people remember 36 Red, but I think he and Albert the Great are the two great horses you trained that a lot of people don't remember.
Well,
clearly a lot of people do remember
Albert
them.
Albert the Great trained up here when he won the Gold Cup. So did A.P. Valentine, and he won the Champagne.
Right.
So we just took off after that with the Saratoga philosophy of training horses up here. So we went from Albert the Great to, so many good horses. There were so many that won the Champagne, and there were a bunch of them.
6 Champagnes you won?
Five.
It's
And a
pretty
lot of
amazing.
them trained up here. So it became a Warpass, as you know.
Sure.
He trained up here and stayed up here. And it's just, I preach the gospel 100 million times a year about Saratoga. I mean, I always say, 2 days before the Belmont, I was on with Mad Dog, Chris Russo, Sirius Radio. And he's not a fan of racing, but I'm getting him now used to our sport. He's starting to like it. And I said, if you could probably take Saratoga, Del Mar, and maybe Keelan, put them in a Coca-Cola bottle, you could somewhat sell racing. However, Saratoga's the Mecca. It just stands alone. Stands alone.
Right. Where else could you get a crowd like this to come hear jerks like us?
You know
on
what?
Thursday night?
I'm very surprised that they didn't catch on about you. I don't even know how you made 6 years.
They're here to see you, Nick. They're not here for the guests. It's because
I don't
you're
know how
here.
you made 6 years, but
I don't know. I don't either. I wonder myself sometimes. I think Birdstone is probably the one that really got people hooked in the Saratoga and training up here in the off season. Because I remember getting a lot of press after he beat Murray Jones. People saying, it's the day after the race and Birdstone's already back in Saratoga.
Right. That's exactly right. And he wound up winning the Travers with no prep race, just trained up here. Our queen of Saratoga, you all know Mary Lou, she came out for the workout, and it was a very, very impressive workout, and we were all happy as can be, and we won that Travers, which
You
was
were first
memorable.
and second in that Travers.
Yep, and it was memorable, and it was a great thing.
I think that Travers might be one of the most memorable Travers ever, just because the storm came in the
Yeah.
middle of the race, and the picture of you and Mary Lou in the winner's circle in
that's
the
right.
rain was,
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Oh, it was beautiful. I remember telling everybody that was in our party, I said, we're all going to be Gene Kelly now. We're going to sing in the rain. And we started, and we were all drenched, and it was worth it. Every one of us. And if I'm not mistaken, did they cancel the last race?
Yeah.
That's how bad a storm it was.
It had already passed over. It was already nice out, but it rained so hard, there was a turf race, they couldn't run the race, and they canceled
Right,
it.
right.
It's fun. I mean, that has to be, you won some big races for Mary Lou. You won the Kentucky Oaks with Birdtown, Birdstone's sister.
Right.
that Travers had to be the pinnacle, though.
Yeah,
to
it's
win
right.
up
It's
here.
right up there. It's right up there. Absolutely.
And to win for Mary Lou, because I mean, I used to talk about you had quite a relationship with her. How did that relationship start?
Well, you know, I'm very fond of her husband too, John Henriksen, and I met Mary Lou way back when. One of my first, let's say backers was Sandra Payson. Sandra was the daughter of Charlie Payson, but the daughter of Joan Whitney Payson, who owned her and her brother owned the Mets.
Right.
And owned Green Tree. So I went to dinner one night, and Mary Lou was there with the great Sonny Whitney. So I go back with her. It's when I had black hair. And then I met John, obviously, and we struck a good relationship. And no, she's just, I don't have to tell the folks. They all know what she does for the community. And let me just tell you this. This is something just to get away from racing for a second. So she's very fond of the hospital. She has a lot to do. My office manager, Jamie Stevens, deathly sick. And Mary Lou and John ran to her rescue and got her the proper care, and she's almost 100% now.
Well, that's great to hear.
She's a young lady.
Yeah.
And she's a young lady. She's also the daughter-in-law of Gary Stevens, famous
okay.
jockey.
Right. We'd have him on if he ever came to Saratoga. He rode commentator.
Yes, he did, and
Yeah.
in the Whitney.
Yeah. In the greatest.
Yeah.
That still, we talked about it this morning. I think commentators win in the Whitney was the single most exciting race I think I've ever seen here.
No question, no question.
I remember I wanted him to win so much for you. It felt like that stretch went on forever.
Yeah,
You know, you just when is the wire going to
yeah,
come?
it did.
Yeah.
But Gary rode a great race and kept the horse going. There's a great jockey there.
Angel,
Another one, Manny Frank.
Manny as well. I agree. You guys won a race together on Sunday.
Hey, Manny, thank you for Sunday. That was very cool. He won
I know he won a 20-1 for you on the first
races
race.
have been a little far in between these days, but that was a beautiful ride.
Manny's going to have a big summer.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think Manny is right on the cusp of a superstardom.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying because he's here.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
By the way, I have to give you a compliment. You know my son Alex.
I do.
He's a student of the game. He said the one thing he loves about Ernie, and ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, Andy actually does the work. This is not, in other words, he does the work. He goes 6 hours a night. We used to say burn the midnight oil, and that's what he does.
Yeah, well, I love it. I mean, you come to Saratoga, right? And I'm sure this has happened for many of the people here, and you get the past performances of the first couple days, and you look at some of the races, you think, these races could only take place in Saratoga, right? Because
Right,
you've got
absolutely.
the New York guys, you've got
absolutely.
the Kentucky guys are coming, people come from Florida, and so many people point here, and I think
Right.
handicappers and people involved in the game as well. It's just so exciting to be here, and
Yeah.
so great to look at the past performances.
Yeah, but
And appreciate it.
Well, you do a good job, and somehow I don't know how you pulled it off, but
It's
you
for
did.
you. It's because of you. It's good. Listen,
shocked.
you and I have been friends for 23 years. I remember you befriended me. You had Diligence for George Steinbrenner, and you
Yeah.
came up and teased me one day about making fun of Diligence. And you
Well, that's because I was working for Mr. Steinbrenner.
Right.
He wanted me to do that too.
you trained a lot of horses. How did you get involved in training for him?
Oh, we just knew each other, and I had a great. I really, really, really respected Mr. Steinbrenner. I had a great relationship with him, unbelievable, and he loved horses. A lot of people don't know. He actually owned the Red Mile in Kentucky. A lot of
Lexington.
people didn't know that, and.
Well, he owned
loved
Tampa
horses.
too, right? And
That's
MLB
right.
made him sell
That's
the
right.
track
He owned Tampa.
because they didn't allow you to own it like
Right.
it mattered, right?
But he was great, and he finished second in the Travers, with Bellany Road. But of course, the Wood Memorial wasn't bad.
I watched the Wood Memorial with you.
Yeah, that's right.
I watched. I'm sure many people remember Bellamy Road's Wood Memorial. I watched it with Nick, and you had 2 horses in the race, 2 or 3.
I know he won by 17 last.
And you said to me, we watched the race together, and they went the first turn. And he went to the lead, and he said to me, I didn't want him to go to the lead. And then we just watched the rest of the race.
And then
with
that
our
was funny
jaws
because
dropping.
there was never a horse that won a prep race that far. So we were worried about the Derby, and lo and behold, he had an issue. He got hurt in the Derby. And Hobby thought for sure he was going to win the Derby, and we all did. But he was a wonderful horse, and Steinbrenner was great. But that's how we met, ladies and gentlemen, because Andy, there's 2 things you don't do, and Andy did
And I do them all of them.
One of them.
I do all of them.
You don't knock a horse, basically. You don't say anything bad about the horse. So I had a pull him up.
He was the Peter Pan.
And
The Peter Pan.
We've
He
been
was-
best
yeah.
friends ever since. So.
Yeah, well, that's how we became friends. And I mean, I watched a lot of good horse with you. I'll tell you a funny horse of yours that I watched debut. St. Michael, the horse you
Oh,
had for
my
Mattress
God.
Mac.
Yeah.
His debut. Do you remember
Yeah.
who won his debut? We watched it together.
By a
Grand
pole.
Slam.
By a
No,
pole.
Grand Slam won his debut. It was at
Yeah.
Belmont.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He ran
But then
third,
he went to
and then he went to
Florida.
Florida, and he won by 20. And
Well, you're the
unfortunately-
encyclopedia here, not me.
Well,
So,
I
you
mean,
know,
he was.
don't kill him. You
We
know.
watched that race together.
Yeah.
Nick was always great for just hanging around, watching races in
Oh, yeah.
the grandstand at Belmont. Right,
love
we'd go
it,
watch
yeah.
the races. It was great. And you know, we were talking about it earlier. You have been probably around as many characters in the game as anybody, and you start.
No
we were talking
question.
early in your career when you trained for Alan Rossoff.
Oh, no question. They used to have a room called the Man of War room, and he would have like, eight people that are all characters, Damon Runyon characters, and one of them I think was up here because his name was Jimmy Saratoga, and then they had Benny the Golfer, and then they had this guy and that guy, and Alan was unbelievable because he'd invite everyone to have lunch with him in the Man of War room, and then he would have Jimmy, who was from Saratoga, go and cash the checks, and he'd have these rolls like this, and then when the 9th race came, it was like that, you know. But he was unbelievable. He gave me one of my first chances in racing, and see, Andy remembers all that stuff.
Well, I mean, he was.
And you were this big too.
I
Andy.
was, yeah. I mean, I didn't know you back then, but
Yeah,
Jimmy,
sorry.
I want to say that Jimmy's was his. He was friendly, or was the family that had what was the Italian restaurant on the west side? De Rossi's.
That's right.
De Rossi's,
That's
right?
absolutely
That's-
right.
I think Jimmy was.
De Rossi's.
Yeah, and I think
That's
Jimmy,
right.
Jimmy was,
Very
was friendly
good,
with
very
them. with
good.
them. I mean,
See?
these guys were legends, and
legends,
they
yeah.
used to sit in the old and this right behind the boxes, that dining area behind
Yeah.
the boxes, right
Yeah.
at Saratoga.
Yeah.
That was really a great time. And now was Alan Rossoff one of your first owners?
One of my, yeah, well, I had a few people before that, but Alan gave me a really good chance. And we had some great memories, and he liked to bet, and he liked to, you know, he bred horses and everything. And up in Saratoga, he missed one of the, I guess, the biggest, you would say, bets, I guess. He lost by this much.
You've made your share of bets in your day,
Well,
too.
Estelle's Lyric. And people still talk about that. The people that are still alive, thank God, talk about that race because she got beat this far and she was like 1,000,000 to 1 and everybody had waited for her. And I couldn't believe the price myself because today, if you had a horse that's working well, the whole world knows.
Right.
And that's like it was years ago. That wasn't that way. But today, that horse would be like what, 9-2 or 5-1
Or less. You know, it's funny about scores. We were talking about this earlier today, and I think people here might agree. You obviously remember big wins and your favorite horses and
Yeah.
some of the horses you've loved. But I think sometimes with bets, we remember the tough beats
Oh,
longer
yeah.
than we remember some of the big scores, right?
yeah.
Because you remember that story, right?
Yeah, well, the toughest beat in 2001, I guess, Albert the Great's Travers was the longest race, I think, and if you watch the replay, in history for me as a trainer. Because he was in front from the half mile just before he got to the wire,
Unshaded.
and Shane Sellers went like this. And I mean, he had it won, he had it won, he had it won, he had
Yeah,
it
he
won.
lost
had it won.
because George dropped him to the dead rail.
Yeah, the rail was dead. Well, this guy, hey Angel, how do you put up with this guy? he knocks anybody.
Well,
you
you
know.
know, George put him on the dead rail in that
You're
race.
right, but
yeah.
the rail was dead, and you know I love Angel right there. Was the greatest jockey. He's in the top 5, I think, of all time, and that's saying something. Believe me. He made a horse drift, and the reason he made a horse drift is the horse was running naturally for Angel, and he didn't take him out of his rhythm. He'd keep him in, and I love that Angel the way he did. He'd keep him in the middle of the racetrack. Everybody would say, "Oh, he took this rider out." No, he just knew where that horse. Why put that horse down there, and give the momentum to the outside? So, Angel, I want to salute you for
Wow.
all those years of being one of the greatest jockeys of all time.
I've said it before, and we've had Angel.
Size, my
I
friend.
don't think that people. I mean, a lot of people here will remember it,
Right.
but being a kid and Angel riding here, he was
Oh.
the biggest star you would ever. I mean, nobody is like a star like
Andy,
Angel.
that's
was.
why I love you, because that's what racing needs.
I mean,
We
he was
need
up here in
people
Saratoga.
we need
Angel
people
was
like that.
just a god.
We need
riding up
people
here.
like that.
You know, it
because
was
see the people here, they're paying attention because they love racing. They love Saratoga. And we need people to, I said, preach the gospel, true, to preach the pageantry, the beauty, the romance of Saratoga.
I
And
think
he always did that.
I think one of the things about Saratoga, and a lot of people can feel free to disagree or not, is that a lot of people we play in simulcasting, they watch at home, but everybody comes to Saratoga, right? You play at home during the
Yeah.
year, but everybody comes, and it's almost like a Saratoga. Every day is a reunion, right? Somebody else shows up that day that you haven't seen since last
Well,
summer.
the reason everybody comes, you can't get a parking space anymore. That's why you know.
Yeah, parking's a problem around here.
Yeah.
Nick, it's been great having you on.
Oh, yeah, thank
Can we
you
not
so
wait
much,
6
and
more years to make this
thank
happen?
you. Excuse me?
Come back in less than 6 years?
Oh, it'd be my
I'll see
pleasure.
if Kim will
Be
give
my
us
pleasure.
permission.
As long as you have it in the parting glass. You know why? I'm very comfortable with this audience. Thank
It's
you
the
very
best
much.
spot in town. Best
Thank
spot.
you
Can't have
very
a better
much.
spot for the show. Nick Zito. Let's give Nick a big hand and thank him for coming here. Appreciate it a lot, Nick. Thank you so much.